Welcome to the EduCampion second webinar series. This webinar series has come about through a partnership between Rex Education and the Ateneo de Manila Science and Art of Learning and Teaching Institute, or the Ateneo SALT Institute, and the Ateneo Teacher Center. I'm Rita Atienza, Director of the Ateneo Teacher Center. You might know the Ateneo Teacher Center better through the Turo Guro seminar workshops that we give for basic education teachers every summer, and our current radio show, Radio Turo Guro. The ATC is a center of the SALT Institute. SALT seeks to promote innovations in learning and teaching, especially those that help address challenges that the nation faces in education, like the ones we are currently hurdling. We are very happy to partner with Rex Education in bringing this webinar series to you. EduCampion is Rex Education's ongoing initiative for the promotion of the Filipino whole learner. EduCampion engages and empowers education duty bearers that they may better respect, protect, and fulfill every Filipino learner's right to quality education. The second EduCampion webinar series on learner agency, which is designed to build capacities for making our learners champions of their own learning, is being brought to you. The first episode is being brought to you today. It consists of 12 webinars running from February 13 up to May 15, 2021. Well, we are very excited to kick off the series with a much sought after speaker, Dr. Cara Galang Fernandez. Dr. Karina Galang Fernandez finished her MA in Human Development from Boston College and her PhD in Clinical Psychology from the Ateneo de Manila University. Currently, she is a full-time faculty member of the Ateneo de Manila Psychology Department and Executive Director of the Ateneo Bulatao Center for Psychological Services. She's also co-chair of the Clinical Division of the Psychological Association of the Philippines. As a teacher, she teaches both at the undergraduate and graduate level and has contributed to several local and international psychology journals. At the Bulatao Center, her areas of specialization are in anxiety disorders and depression, motivation and mindfulness interventions, working mainly with adolescents and young adults. She is also certified in mindfulness facilitation and narrative therapy interventions. So we are very excited to have with us today Dr. Cara Fernandez. Welcome, Dr. Cara. Okay, so I will stop share so that you can get on with your presentation. I'm very sure they're excited about it.
Thank you very much, Rita. And thank you very much to SALT and to Rex Education for inviting me today. I'd like to say that I am honored to participate in this series. And I am honored to be a part of this occasion today, where you who are watching have decided to invest in expanding your toolkit of mentoring your students, which I believe for many, if not all teachers, is really the heart of our mission on why we decided to enter into the field of education. So thank you very much to everyone for making this possible. And on behalf of all your students, to all you teachers and mentors, thank you also for taking this time to expand your toolkit. Okay. There you go. Let me just quickly introduce the Ateneo Bulatao Center. We have 3 services. We do counseling and assessment. We also do training and workshops such as this. And of course, being part of an educational institution, we do basic and applied research. So even while we are all online, we have continued our services mainly for counseling. And it is all online. And of course, we're doing a lot of training for um, companies, schools, NGOs, government organizations on issues related to mental health. And we do continue our research. Our research at present is about the professionalization and development of psychologists, as well as our other main branches now of research, which are on parenting and adolescence. I am going to work with two frameworks today. The first is the self-determination theory by Ryan and Deci, and the second is Carol Dweck's theory of mindsets. As is my practice as a teacher, I would like to present the theory to give you a sort of to give you a frame to help you understand why you should say and do certain things. In other words, I feel people are more likely to buy in when invited to behave in certain ways or say certain things if they understand the theory behind it. So I'm going to go into each, and so each part will have a theory part, and the other part will be the giving you practices that you can do in order to enhance learning agency in your students. So let's talk about agency for a while. Now, what does it mean to be agentic? How do you know your student has agency, okay, and is motivated? So usually they're inspired, they want to learn, they're stretching themselves, they want to go from I don't know to I know, and they really bring in their specific talents. So you can see them, they're energetic, directed, persevering, active, and very intentional about what they do. So when we talk about self-determination and agency, to what extent do we determine ourselves and our actions? Okay, so I'd like you, as I give this talk, I'd like you to imagine those students who seem to fit the images or the characteristics that I mentioned. So now, who are your students that seem to be like that in the present or in the past? So when we think about self-determination and agency, I think of students who try to solve a math problem even if the quiz is over. It's done, the grade is there, they can do nothing about it anymore, but they're wondering, is this the answer? Or I didn't get to finish it, but I wonder what the answer is. Or about those people who play basketball in the park and their parents are calling them to come home for dinner, and yet they don't want to go home. They want to continue mastering their skills in basketball. Or for some students, they write essays for the school paper, even if they're never going to get a grade on it, and yet they pour over writing good sentences, making good arguments, filling in, 2 pages of good, of making a point that they want to make. So maybe we ask ourselves, how can we do that? Bring that same motivation in the students that are under our care. Okay, so reflect. What is important for you? Father Bulatao, our mentor at the Bulatao Center, he said, the only way to learn is to do. So just for yourselves, take a moment to reflect. Is this important for you? I want to see my student working hard because he's interested in the topic at hand. I want to see that my student is working hard because he values his family, his school, what they will say, the praise. I want to see my student working hard because he wants to look competent and capable. I want to see that my student, is working hard because he knows he will get rewarded. So which do you think ranks as most important to you? So keeping that in mind, I invite you to maybe revisit or to learn for the first time the self-determination theory of Deci and Ryan. So for Deci and Ryan, we have this framework, this continuum of non-self-determined on one end and self-determined on the other end. Okay, so we have sort of three parts of the continuum. We have amotivation, where there's no regulation whatsoever and no motivation. Then extrinsic motivation, which is a mini continuum of external regulation to more internal identified regulation to really intrinsic motivation. And we are going to go into them individually. No? Okay, so in the Bulatao Center, we see clients who are really unmotivated. Okay, they have no energy. It's like beating a sick horse. They don't want to move. They don't want to try. Even just to get them to the car pre-COVID, to get to go to school, ayaw nila. I have no control over my life. Walang pakialam. Achievement is simply a function of luck. And they might not look it, but they're highly anxious because everything is outside their control. So you see a picture there of a kid just lying in bed. Wala talaga. So nothing will motivate them. There is no carrot. There is no stick. I mean, even if there's a carrot or a stick, they just stare at it. They're really unmotivated. So maybe you might have students like this, and maybe they need more professional help, no? So let's now look at those where there is some sense of motivation. And as we said, this is a continuum. And again, think of your students who might be in this. So on one end of the one that where there's more motivation already, extrinsic, where the point of doing something is outside the something, outside the activity itself. And on the other hand, end is intrinsic, doing something because it brings you joy, or you're going to grow and learn. So that's the continuum. So a little more in general, and then we will go into the meat of it. Why would somebody be extrinsically motivated, or where they're coming from, or what is inside of them? What are they thinking? No, they want to achieve the rewards or avoid the punishments. They're the ones who will choose the easy path and not the one that will bring growth. When they're challenged, it's an obstacle. Or worse, there's learned helplessness. They'll give a rudimentary try and then it's not going to work. And when failure comes, they connect it very much to themselves. No? On the other hand, or actually, I should add there, when they view failure, they also blame the environment. They could blame the environment. Intrinsic regulation, there's the joy. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to evolve. And when they fail, they think, what happened here? Maybe I could have done something better. Maybe in the parts of the task itself, or simply the effort that they should have put in. Okay. So let's now look at them more individually. So it is a continuum, but just for easy presentation, they seem to appear categorical because then it's easier to simply explain the characteristics of the different parts of that continuum. No, so for external regulation, it's purely for the rewards and or the punishments. Okay, I don't want to be grounded. I want to get that PS5. And then there is introjection. Okay. Introjection, I remember learning in psychodynamic theory, introjection is like you have swallowed whole a person, like your mother. There's mother inside of you. Okay. So when they do something because they want to please others, okay, and there might not be a carrot or a stick, but they feel the punishment that mother is is sad or frustrated or disappointed in me, or mother is very happy. Okay, so but it's still mother. It's still something somewhat external, but it's like swallowed hook, line, and sinker. Okay. And then somewhat internal is that it's somewhere in between introjected and internal, where you value something. It's personally important, but it's there's that valuing, but not for the activity, but for something else. And we will see what that something else is. Versus internal, really, I'm doing something for the joy and growth and learning related to the task. Okay, how can I improve myself in math, or learning how to write a good essay? Or I'm really interested in the history of our country during World War II. Okay. So the motivations, and in external regulation, a person feels controlled, and the consequences of behavior based on outside forces. So this is the classic. It's the teacher's fault. She was too hard. She really made it difficult. Um, it's the internet's fault. So sometimes it is the internet's fault. Don't get me wrong, but they don't seem to say that until the grade comes out. You know what I mean? The consequences, when they see the grade, then they start blaming teacher who didn't give so much feedback, or the internet that was wonky at the end when the grades come out. No, with introjected regulation, the motivation really is I want to avoid guilt. And what is guilt? And we learned this from Erickson. There's this component of a certain standard. Okay, so again, of the internalized, introjected parent. No, a person's motivation is to please others. And then with identified regulation, a person does something because they feel it is personally important. Okay, it is their self-concept, their self-esteem that is on the line. So we see in therapy, for those that are experiencing teenagers, the clients we've been having since COVID, the perfectionists, a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, difficulty sleeping, that they've already started taking sleeping medication. And these are high school kids. And I see, if I were to categorize them, to be under introjected or identified, right? They feel this sense of responsibility to do well for the family. I'm the ate, I should set a good example, you know, or if I don't do well, who am I? This is my persona. This is who I am in the eyes of my class or my school. I'm in this particular program. So of course, if you're in this program, you have to do very well. So their, let's say for identified, it's like their self-concept is at stake. So yes, we're doing a lot of work with these people in therapy online. No? Okay. And then what are the repercussions? For those that externally motivated, they're less interested, less effort. They disown responsibility because it's somebody else's fault. Introjected, there is more effort, more anxiety, and cope poorly with failure. And those who identify, there is that push. Okay, there is that value because nga, they want to look good. Versus those who are intrinsically motivated, you can see this sort of curiosity and spontaneity and playfulness with the challenges that come their way. Their appraisal of challenges is it's a challenge rather than a personal threat. So they value that persevering and end up more psychologically well. So we want them to be intrinsically motivated, right? How can they feel, have more fun with things, right? How can they see challenges as learning opportunities to grow? How can they have more fun, right? How can they think, I want to be better? How can we present or package our lessons and our classes that I want to be better at something? Okay. So how do we develop that intrinsic style? First of all, stay away from the external. Try not to endorse that idea of rewards, punishments, or contexts. So, um, let's see if we can catch ourselves saying, do it now or else. Or, teacher will be disappointed if you don't do well on this. Okay. So you're by saying that, we're inviting our kids to think that their motivation should be external. Okay. Create in the student some sense of control, choice, or value. To the extent that we can on projects, what do you want to do first? Or inviting, if you put the students into groups, who will do what according to their talents and what brings them joy. No, is there a way in certain classes that they have freedom or choice in terms of topic? What is interesting to you? Or why might this topic, this lesson be important? By doing that, we are bringing them towards that continuum of the self, bringing in the self, rather than it being something you just have to do. So that very external outside relationship. Also, bringing back to the self a sense of competence. Self-efficacy and awareness. What did you think you did well in this activity? What part of it do you feel you really worked on? No, so even if it's a math problem solving activity, ask them to reflect on themselves after engaging in that activity. No, so again, it brings in that connection with what you have to do. And also sensitivity to their learning level. And I think I'd like to think that in the history of education in our country, we are becoming more sensitive to this, and I hope we can continue to grow this, no? That we tell our students, I know this is difficult for you, but I see you are improving, and then be concrete in being sensitive to where they are improving. So example, maybe, I see you're improving in knowing the difference of when to use addition or subtraction. Kunyari, in a problem solving where they have to analyze in the problem, is this an adding problem solving question, or is this a subtracting problem solving question? So show that you are sensitive to where they are and the movement they are making, will then bring us again towards that goal or motivation of growth. No? And then they'll be more engaged, as you said, going back to the definition of agency, no? More engaged, more excited, more involved. So the idea of buying in, no? I said it a little in the previous slide, but I'd like to bring it in a little more. So having open discussions with your students, collaborate even maybe on rules and expectations of deadlines. Okay, maybe explaining, I know you'd love to have a longer time to do this, but what do you think? By having the deadline now, you will have the long weekend for free, or we can then move to another topic rather than cram everything at the end at the same time. So having open discussions about rules and expectations, no? Then also relate topics to their experience. This is where I think it becomes fun, no? When you're a teacher, try to think, what are my students interested in now? What is their thing? What movies are they into? What games are they into? And then see if we can relate the topics to their experiences. So for example, you're teaching ratio, right? And then you ask them to make a small version of their first floor of their house using Minecraft. And therefore, let's say, I don't know, the floor of the sala is 20 feet. I don't know, I'm just inventing. So if Minecraft, how many bricks could that be? Then you're teaching them ratio. Or maybe asking them, if you're taking up the taxonomic chart, maybe asking them in a certain TV show, what are what phylum are the different characters in that cartoon? Or maybe just from a macro level, in all the TV shows of Nick Nickelodeon or Nick Jr. This do all the where do most of the characters across all the cartoons fall under in terms of a taxonomic chart? No, are they all? They seem to all be phylum Chordata or something like that. Are they vertebrates or invertebrates? Things like that. So relate the topic to their experience rather than simply having them memorize the different phylums or the different parts of the taxonomic chart. We can relate it to their experiences. No. Inviting your students to reflect on why school in general, a class project, or an assessment might be important to him or her in the short term, meaning as kids in COVID, in February 2021, or in the long term, whatever it is their interests are, in terms of their career or their college courses or so on. In the end, also help them buy in and therefore find some personal connection rather than something being so external. Try to always see their point of view, appreciate their point of view, and validate and enjoy their point of view. So I acknowledge this is easier in some topics rather than in others. But when a student, for example, has an opposing point of view from yours, and you start a discussion in a synchronous class, and other students hear that you enjoy hearing that opposing point of view, then they're more likely to engage and to stretch themselves because they feel that what they value is important, and therefore it's more internalized, and therefore they're more likely to be self-determined and agentic. Okay, watching my time here. Of course, the parents are still involved. So when I do parenting workshops on this similar topics, I borrow this slide. Ask the parents when they're complaining about their kids' grades. Ask them, who is this for really? What do you want? Do you want them to learn or do you want them to get high grades? I'm guessing they might know the answer to that. But maybe to explain to them that the messages they also tell their children in terms of self-determination and growth and intrinsic value should be on the learning and rather than on the grades. Okay, so when parents are reviewing their kids, spending these hours and poring over modules with them, do they want them to learn or simply to get it done by 6:30, or simply to finish? So if it's simply to finish, then the motivation is different from really trying to master and understand and stretch themselves in terms of their goals. Okay, so let's take a deep breath and continue by talking about the idea of a growth mindset to further supplement our toolkit. So I hope with the previous slides, you have a few ideas on how to engage your kids to be more self-determined. Okay. Another aspect of this is growing what is called a growth mindset. So let me begin with the idea of mental models. Okay. I teach a cognitive psychology class, and in many things that we do and say, they are based on knowledge structures in our minds. Okay, knowledge structures are constructed in our minds by our minds to understand, explain our experiences, and they then influence what we say and what we do and how motivated we are. And they can be beneath our conscious awareness. So what I'm going to present to you is the mental model of intelligence that people have. According to Carol Dweck, some people have a growth mindset of intelligence, that intelligence is something we grow, or we have another mindset where we think intelligence is simply something you have or you don't. But before we go there, I'd like to explain a bit more these bullet points. That the thing is, we think we have mindsets, a certain mindset of something, but maybe it might be a little different and we just don't know it. So let me begin with This might seem unrelated, but you're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. I ask my students what is their mind's mental model of hiccups. Okay, so what is your mental model? What is happening when you have a hiccup? Okay, and what do you do when you have a hiccup? So students say, for example, they hold their breath. So I ask them, why do you think you hold your breath? What is your mental model of hiccups? And they think about it, and through the years of having asked this question, many students say, it's like you have this bubble inside. And when you hold your breath, you're not giving air to that bubble, something like that. And therefore, the bubble, which is keeping the air from going out, will sort of like stop. Or by holding your breath, you're bringing down your diaphragm to pop that bubble. So they never really explicitly thought, what is my mental model of hiccups that makes me hold my breath? So meaning we might be behaving, saying, and doing things in certain ways without really explicitating our mental model, but it affects us. Okay, so I give that example. So that's fun, something to do over lunch with your family and through the Valentine's as a topic. What is your mental model of hiccups? But my point there is we might have certain mental models and are not really conscious of what they are, but yet they affect what we say and do. So as teachers and as mentors of our students, we and they might have mental models that are affecting our behavior, what we say and do. So mental model of intelligence. What does this sound like you? Okay. Oh, you're so smart. Wow, you did that without even trying. You're a natural. You're a Picasso. Or I can see you really worked hard on that one, and you've come a long way. So again, which are you and your students? Do you or your students focus on the easy stuff and avoid the hard stuff? I choose the projects and tasks where I get an easy A. This is especially evident in college, where we have those students who research about which teachers will give an easy A. But then we have those students who will look for those teachers who are really a challenge because they want, they said, I'd be lucky to get a B, but oh my gosh, am I going to learn? So that's a different mindset. And then those people who, if they don't succeed, they give up quickly. I tried, didn't get it, never mind. Versus, well, it's a struggle at the start. Feeling stupid at the beginning is part of learning. You have the group that values labels a lot. I'm more a science person than an arts person. Or the group that values effort. I really have to work harder in art than I do in science. They don't bother, one group doesn't bother trying hard stuff they know they are not good at. I don't really work on Filipino, it's not my thing, just want to get it over with. Or everything can be learned if one tries hard enough. So it brings us to the two mindsets. Okay. The fixed mindset, you have it or you don't. Okay, you're intelligent or you're not. You're gifted or you're not. If you don't get it kaagad, you're not smart. If there has to be effort, that means you're not great. It's not your thing. Basta may effort, it's not your thing. It's not you. Greatness should come naturally. The growth mindset, effort is the key. It focuses on process, persistence. The focus for the individual is not the product, but the improvement and growth. Focus is on the behavior, not so much the outcome. Okay? So we have the fixed and the growth mindset. For those with a fixed mindset, talents are set and stable versus something that evolves. Their focus is on the outcome, the A, the honor, the prizes, rather than the incremental growth. No? Success is an indicator of self-worth. You're always connecting when you get an A to the self, and then versus the growth mindset, success means I've come a long way. And failure is an indicator of identity. They really connected to your identity. It's not me. I'm lousy. I'm pathetic. And what is the point? I won't change because you have it or you don't. Versus for those with a growth mindset, it's an indicator of how much work one must do. So here are more examples. I got four, those with a fixed mindset would say, I got 4 A's, I'm so smart, I'm always honors, I'm a math person. Those who focus or have an intrinsically growth mindset, I studied for a long time, that's why I got a hard score. I worked so hard on that one. Growth, I did much better now than last year. I can really see I'm moving. And they focus on behavior. What do I have to do? I won't give up. I'll try more exercises. I'm really not getting it. So maybe I have to look up more exercises that I can do. So going back to where our mindsets might take us, no? Studies by Carol Dweck, as well as others who have used the mindset theory, no? They find that those with a fixed mindset are more anxious, depressed, and have self-regulation issues. And I actually did a study on this for the PJP, no, that there is a relationship between mindset and anxiety because every quiz they take is an indicator of identity and self-worth. That every quiz is I'm good or I'm nothing, right? So everything is a test of the self. Okay. And again, I see this in the clinic that they really connect the outcome to their identity. And they're more likely to fall for learned helplessness. When they do fail, they won't try anymore because ang alam nila, things have to come naturally. And kailangan effortless. And if it's effortful, then it's not my thing, so why bother? Learned helplessness. And according also to the studies done by Dweck and colleagues and those that came after her, those with a fixed mindset but were gifted, meaning, they were good at things when things were easy. In the long run, when things got difficult, they were actually underachievers. And I see this anecdotally as well. These kids who used to be honor students, when all of a sudden college hits them and things are more challenging, and they really have to work at things, they are actually not doing as well as might be expected statistically because of their mindset that I'm having a hard time, I have to work on this, I guess it's not for me, so I will not try as much as maybe other people would. Okay. And for those with a growth mindset who focus more on the behavior and the effort and the work rather than the outcome, studies have shown that they are actually more emotionally stable. They're excited by challenge, so they see work as challenges rather than threats. Because the idea of the concept of threat is threat to the self. And are challenged by mistakes and failure. And they're generally consistent and do well in the long run. So let's now find the tools. No? What do we have to do to invite to grow a growth mindset as teachers? So focus on effort and improvement rather than labels, output, and perfection. So you say, I can see you did better on this rather than, wow, you got an A. Focus on, naalala ko na pinursige mo talaga ito versus genius in the house because that's sort of natural. And then you're doing better now. I see how you improved in the areas of finding good literature versus 5 students got perfect. Okay. All right. So, I'd like to say a little more on that point, no? That this will mean on the part of the teacher knowing how the student is doing from a more macro perspective, what they were struggling with, maybe in earlier papers and earlier assessments, and where they are now, and trying to really pinpoint, no, where they might be doing better and where they're not so much doing better. So that's what we mean, no? Looking at the bigger picture of the child's performance. And I find, in fact, that now that we're all online, I am able to look back at my students' previous discussions and submissions, and I can see the story of it, of their growth and movement, no? Versus before, if they have a little essay on a size 2 paper and I give it back to them, of course, after I grade it. I don't remember. I mean, I'll see the grade in my grade book, but now I find I can look back and I can see and I can comment that I noticed you're using more literature on this discussion. Last time you didn't use any literature at all, something like that. So your grammar on this paper is better than the last one. You're getting good at knowing how to add and subtract. So now let's work on knowing when to do which operation. So you hold the power, celebrate the growth, the incremental learning, and it means it does mean looking at the bigger picture in terms of their performance. So feedbacks and constructive criticisms, according to this model, let's try to be as specific and concrete as possible, especially on non-objective assessments, to really show them the rubric and where they might be advancing and improving in terms of certain areas of the rubric and where they're not. So you might tell a student, your voice during presentation could be a little louder and your words more enunciated. See, so it's more concrete and specific, what we are asking of them, versus do better next time. Be a cheerleader for perseverance and the concept of the learning curve. So if a student's having a hard time, what if we say it this way? Don't worry if you don't get it right now. Let's say it's the first day that they're learning, sine, cosine. It's a work in progress. We just met the topic today. Let's get to know it. So for example, let's do a non-academic example. You have your child at home decides, because everybody's baking, I'm going to bake, and they never baked before, and then their first batch of brownies are hard as a rock, and they might go, I guess baking's not for me. But you go, it's a work in progress. Of course you're going to fail now because the first time you're doing it. Let's try again right now, something like that. We just met baking brownies today. So and then that being a cheerleader might mean you got several mistakes, so that it's me. Let's keep at this. Let's keep going on this. So I wonder if our our imagery of ourselves as teachers is coach, which sometimes has a different persona and set of behaviors. And so maybe how can we be that, rah, 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 on the sidelines? How can I help you? How can I make you do better? Teacher, I love this one. Teach your students the power of yet. So if your student says, I don't get long division, and you can say, yet. Say that. I don't remember the taxonomic chart, and you can say, yet. So I don't remember the taxonomic chart yet. I don't understand long division yet. So teach your students that power, that because we're creating that growth mindset. And then teach them about growth mindset and the brain. There actually have been studies that teaching your students the topic of the brain and intelligence, they had an experimental group and a control group. Those who were literally taught about the growth mindset, and in particular the brain aspect of the growth mindset, did better later, on certain DVs, developmental variables, that were part of the study. And so what do you actually say? That challenges and obstacles are like dumbbells. So as you're working on these new things that you have to learn, you're becoming smarter, your mental muscles are actually growing. Neural connections are being made. Neural connections that are just that are still wonky are becoming more strengthened. And also, for example, nobody can carry 20-pound weights at the beginning, but if you keep every day working at it, you can eventually do that. And it's the same with the learning. So for them to see academics as as something that you grow with, the way, carrying 20, 25, 50 pound weights is something that you can't do at the beginning. And what actually happens to the brain, they find that teaching your students that can make a difference. So this is my last slide. Towards their future success, the attitudes towards learning and challenges and giving their best that we instill in our youth become their attitude towards life in the future. So as we tell our kids the things we tell them every day with our assessments, comments, with the kind of work that we give them in the classroom, will create for them a certain belief and attitude towards challenges that will come their way in the future. So we really play. I'd like to think really we're not just teachers, but we are mentors. That we are helping them. That we think we're just teaching them math or English, literature, but really we're creating in them a certain attitude that they can carry and will carry for the rest of their lives. So with that, I know that we will have a period for questions, and I'm looking forward to that. And as early as now, I will say thank you very much on behalf of the Ateneo Bulatao Center. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to work with you in helping our kids. So
Thank you.
Stop share.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cara. That was a very interesting and informative. Actually, it was a very exciting presentation, and we have a lot of comments. Apparently, we have viewers not only from all over the Philippines, but also from Jakarta, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. So your Valentine wishes, as well as all the food for thought you've given us, will reach teachers all over the world and the country. So we have a lot of questions for you. Maybe I'll start with the ones on motivation, since they came earlier.
Okay.
And Annalyn Silverio was asking, she finds that she sees a lot of the introjected regulation, etc. I did too. You know, in herself, no. And so she's asking, what are some of your suggestions to improve the levels of motivation? You gave a lot for the students, but she was asking about herself. How can I counteract this kind of thinking? And then I'll just connect. Laura Anar also said, kasi nakaugalian na. In other words, she said that they're fixed. These practices are fixed, and it's so hard to counteract it. And then Ralph Vin said, especially now that they're online. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I will give you a clinical framework that we use when we have kids or adults with an introjected mindset. No. The first step, and it sounds like from these three people who were sent in their questions, there is already some sense of awareness. I know I have introjected parent in me. Diba? They can hear the tone, the voice, the actual words that they use. So that's the first thing we invite people to do, for the self, no, that awareness. Okay, and what is the history of this voice? Because it might not be a parent, it might be a teacher they had in grade 6, and then from there interjected now that you have to be the best, or you are the best, or this is easy for you, whatever. So to become aware of these voices, so that make explicit those voices, become aware of the history of these voices. What we're doing in that step is what we call externalization. No, it's a narrative therapy intervention, that um, I am not the problem is the problem. We're bringing it out and saying, okay, this is what it is. It's my parents or my grandparents who always said, you have to be the best. You're the eldest among all the apos. Mga ganon, diba?
Yeah.
So you have to set a good example. And they carried it their whole life, even in times na things were really challenging. And it's not easy to be your best. It's not easy to get a hole in one every time, right? Or the ball through the hoop every time. Okay, so first step, awareness, to really get to know these voices and acknowledge them, because the more unconscious it is, the harder. Okay, and then second, then I'm guessing again from I'm imagining the tone of these three people. They're aware, I don't want like this. I don't want things to be like this. I want to be easy on myself. I want self-compassion. I know that I will be making mistakes. So then we invite them to think, what do I want? Okay, to explicitate that and to enrich that. What is important for me? So I'm guessing kinalakihan ko na, introjected, and now I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I can't seem to give myself a break. So really, self-compassion, no? It's really the 21st century buzzword in psychology. No? Walang self-compassion because previous generations were really work hard, ways to work hard, 5 ways to be successful. Talagang wala yung sense of really that drive. So step 2 again is, what do I find important? Because maybe that has never been explicitated, because what dominated their mental space was that other voice. Mm-hmm. So now to invite, to strengthen that other voice of what is important to me: self-care, self-compassion, balance. I will make mistakes, and that's a part of life. I won't always get a hole in one. And thicken that. So again, I'm using other narrative therapy words now and ideas. Thicken that, and thicken what is the history of this? Is it just me, or maybe my friends, or maybe one parent was the one who's saying, it's okay, you're gonna be fine, just be happy. That's more important to you. Maybe we have to now give more energy, more attention, more power to that other voice by working to understand why that voice is important. Kasi this one, bilib na tayo, right? Because it was there before we had that opportunity to really decide for ourselves. Ganun ang introjection. It comes in hook, line, and sinker. Para I remember Father Booth saying, it's like you swallowed a mango whole. It was never really into your system. You just took it in. So what do I want? Then becomes the next step. And then the third step, which I think some people forget to do, because they say, no, okay, I know it's important. I believe it with all my heart and soul. But then I have a third step. Finding that middle ground. Because historically, that first step worked for them at some point. That's why they got honors. That's why they got to this place they are in life. Diba? And that's why they're probably still saying it to their own kids, because it also makes sense. So to be able in that third step to invite maybe a new hybrid that I know I want to get a hole in one. We all want to get a hole in one. But then making it, one, more a challenge than a threat. Second, making it an invitation rather than an expectation. As I work with my clients in therapy now and I ask them to personify that introjection, they say, they have these images like, she's a witch, or she,
wow.
Yeah, no, really, these are teenagers, ages 14, 15, 16. She's a witch. I had another one, a drill sergeant ordering me to get an A, to not rest as I write this paper, even if I wrote it. No, you can make it better. Really, really not allowing them psychologically to rest. So even when they're in bed and they typed it na, so that it's time to sleep, it's still in their heads, drilling them, telling them, scaring them if it's a witch, and so on. But then I acknowledge that many of them with these kids, it's hard to get rid of it because they also see its value. So to invite a new personification of it. So maybe more as a guide and as a reminder rather than a drilling, you know, attention, do this, kind
Yeah.
of persona. So inviting also that third point. Now I acknowledge this the introjection has been good to me and has helped me. But maybe now in my life, there's something else I need. So maybe parang what parts of it do I like and what parts of this do I know I have to let go of?
I think that is such a valuable suggestion, because if it's too ideal, it you might not be able to really, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
do it forever.
yeah.
It might not be sustainable. That helps so much. Dr. Cara, there's a question from Tanya Cruz. Does the type of school influence the children's motivation? Like if you send someone to a Montessori type school or to a
Go Rita, you
school.
answer that.
No, we want to hear your answer. No, I'm really interested in hearing your from this point of view.
um, to be honest, I am a psychologist. I'm not. My specialization is not in education, but I will say it does have an effect in the sense that what is the priority of the teacher in the classroom, diba?
Mm-mm.
Is it go at your own pace? Uh, the kind of assessments that are given, do they invite sort of like a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? So it's at so many levels, no? The systemic level, so certain kinds of schools do invite more of a, a sense of where am I and where can I get to by the end of the day
Yes.
or by the end of the week. So that's more systemic. What is the philosophy of the school? But then we bring it into different circles. No,
That's true.
the 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 class itself. Some classes lend itself to more take your
That's
time
true.
to do this. The subject matter, and then the teacher also comes into play. So what am I saying? Even in the most whatever kind of school, um, the teacher can really create an environment, a philosophy, an attitude of a growth mindset or self determination with their feedback, with their involvement with the student, and again, with their own automatic mindset that affects what they do and say to their kids.
I guess you're right. And in fact, can a parent counteract this if the teacher is not, if the teacher is a drill sergeant, for example?
Very much so. And I think on behalf of all the teachers, Ren, they know the power of the student, of the parent, diba? In defense of all teachers, Ren, no? So whether the teacher is a drill sergeant or not, we know the parental influence is first and foremost. That even if the teacher says, yay, five students got A's, what about the rest of you? And very like, hitting the mark kind of praise, no, and kind of philosophy being bred in the classroom. The parent can say, I see this is where you are now, and let's see if we can improve a little by the end of this week or by this quarter. I'm not, it's not an A, but I'm not. Maybe it's too hard right now to get from a D to an A.
Yeah.
But what can we do so that you understand the topic better, that you remember what needs to be remembered, and do what is needed for whatever the assessment is in front of you. So, and we see this, of course, in the college classroom. So you'll have two students from the same school, from high school, but one is intrinsically motivated to understand the lesson, and the other is externally motivated.
That's true.
I'm motivated, and then
That's
it will
true.
come down to their background and
That's true.
what their upbringing and family mantra was about achievement and perfection and mistakes. I always ask that in therapy, by the way.
Mm.
an intake with parents, I ask them, what do you tell your students or your kids when they make mistakes, when they fail? And then, iba-ibang sagot yan. Diba? So yeah, so maybe teachers invite your parents to do a little reflection paper of their own on what what is your belief about mistakes
Mhm.
and failure.
You might be interested to know there are like a group of comments about this related to the relationship between the home and the school. Some are questions, some are comments, but Reynaldo Babatuan said students are likely to learn more meaningfully if facilitated by parents. And Regina Rose Regidor said, um, in her experience online, the kids are the ones asking the parents to do the homework because it's hard, and the parents do the homework.
I know, right? So
So
it goes
yeah,
back to one of my bullet points, which said, "Who is this for?" Diba? Who
yes,
is going to be happy at the end of the day? Maybe it's just the parents.
yeah. And then Celestina Bangkoleng said, "How can we deal with our parents who are always asking us to lower our standards?" So that's again a different. So I
Yeah,
guess parents and teachers are all coming from the same
yeah,
place. And Virginia Santos says, "I wish it would just all be one consistent story."
yeah. That's so true. So how can we deal with parents who always want us to lower their standards? So inviting that parent to ask, what does a standard mean to you? Diba?
Oh.
So maybe teaching parents the idea of the normal curve. Diba? That in a classroom, you will have most people average and some kids over here and some kids over here, right? So statistics 101. So what maybe inviting the parents to ask them, are you saying you want your students to always be in that top 5%, 10% when
Mm-mm.
in a normal curve that is not possible? But inviting the parents to say, so what are you teaching your kids as to what
Mm-mm.
is important? So
Mm-mm.
one, the learning concept of the learning curve and the concept of the normal curve. Right, diba? Yeah.
Yeah. We have an interesting question from Raul Escala. What is the difference between mental models, mindsets, personal outlooks, and personal principles?
Okay. So these can actually are overlapping concepts depending on what what class you're taking. So when we're talking about a mental model, that's a cognitive psychology term that refers to broad knowledge structures, which given your mental model, right? Let's say what is your mental model of intelligence? So
Mm.
it can be a growth mindset and you or a fixed mindset. Okay, so and that mental model will then affect your personal outlook, your
Mm.
personal principles, right? Like I have to be perfect, I have to be valedictorian, I have to be straight A's, right? So that will probably be based on a particular mental model. So Raul, I hope that helps. It's sort of like mental models. Another example of that would be, what is our stereotypes? So that's a mental model. What's your mental model of somebody of a certain ethnicity or a certain religion or certain region of the country? When we have a mental model that affects how we think of those people, how do you relate to those people, our attitude towards that people, our outlook on those people. So it's like from the macro and then how it comes out in terms of our behaviors, beliefs. Our mental models will affect our outlooks, principles, beliefs, behaviors.
Wow, so it's really worth a reflection into what those the hiccups, the hiccup
Yeah, pick up.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Annalyn is asking. She found that she has characteristics of both fixed and growth mindset. Is that she's
That I
wondering
forgot.
why?
Yes. Okay. So studies have shown that people might have a combination, a fixed growth mindset, depending on the task. So they might have a fixed mindset on math. I'm never gonna get math. Don't even ask me to add up, grocery list or something. But might have a growth mindset in cooking. So let's say, okay, palpak the first time I tried to make this dish, but I'll try again next time. Kasi parang siguro masyado maraming tubig or kulang sa, I should have cooked it 30 more minutes. But you see that growth mindset though. They look at their mistake and say, what did I do wrong? What should I change next time? Diba? And it's not, it's, they're challenged. So the agentic and driven. Ooh, maybe next time I should put more salt. So they're thinking of the behavior and not so much the outcome na palpak yung niluto kong beef bourguignon or something like that. No? They think of what the behavior. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? How will I change next time? But then in math, they'll have a fixed mindset. So yes. Also, I'd like to say we did do, I think it was another group in Ateneo. They did find, I acknowledge that students in one subject will have both, might have both. So these are not fixed mindset and growth mindset are not necessarily a continuum. So you might have both a growth mindset. I really want to learn this, but oh my gosh, I want to get an A. So that can also happen. So they'll have that sense of external to it, but also that sense of internal.
There's an interesting question here from Nico Miro. Hi, Dr. Cara. Aside from genes, what are the other predictors of a child's intelligence?
Aside from genes. Okay. So yes, so first we have the genetics, and then of course we have the family background. So both the family philosophy. So I ask that of my students all the time. What is your family philosophy now about achievement? So the family atmosphere, and then the family behavior. So maybe their family philosophies, everyone in this household gets honors, but that might be the philosophy, but the everyday behavior about mistakes and challenges might be actually different, no? So parang they might have it as a big motto on the door. Everyone who lives in this house is honors. But from day to day, they're compassionate about and they have a mental model now. You will make mistakes. You're going to grow. Of course, at the start, you have to learn something before you actually learn it, and so on. So there's the atmosphere. Iba yun sa behavior. Okay, iba yun. And then, of course, besides genes, what else affects? And by the way, I'm talking about intelligence in terms of achievement, huh? Okay. All right. And then we're also talking about, just the bigger context that the child is in. Diba? We know that in the circles of context of Brenner, the school, the family, the clan. It's very possible that your family has a very a certain attitude about grades and honors and Latin honors and becoming you might all be chill about it, but the clan, especially in a collectivist context like the Filipinos, diba? That everybody feels personally affected by if one kid does not get into the college of choice, diba? Or if you feel you let down the whole clan. So there's that circle as well that affects achievement and output, and then the school setting and the bigger circles. What kind of ideas is the child exposed to about achievement and doing well and success and failure?
I'm glad you explained that on a personal level because I'm wondering why one daughter
oh my gosh, yeah.
keeps hearing my voice and my other daughter doesn't really seem to care about all the things I told her.
Yeah. And you wonder why is one kid, and parents ask me that in therapy. I told them the same thing, but one is now highly anxious and the other is not. Well, you also have to take into consideration other things. One, temperament. So it still comes down to the DNA. Some children are naturally sensitive. So any idea that a parent plants in the air, not even plants, throws in the air, they're going to catch it and introject and internalize it. And somebody with a less sensitive temperament will leave it as a cloud in the sky. Okay.
Yeah.
Second, we also, and we see this in Asian families in general, diba? that idea of the child's placement, right? The expectations of
Yes,
ate
true,
and
true.
gusto are very different, right? So, and I don't know how many parents have told this when the first kid came out and started school. Do your best, ha? Kasi titignan ka ng mga kapatid mo. Ikaw yung magiging model. One of my first clients when I was a young therapist was a high achieving family, and he was the first grandchild. And so even the grandparent,
Wow.
so he was coming to therapy for anxiety and identity issues because he was really feeling the weight of being the first apo in a clan of I don't know how many apos. And the grandparents had told him that you're the first apo, you're starting school. All the apos following will see what you've been doing. And wow, his anxiety just listening to him. That's why it was for one of my first clients as a young therapist, and it has stayed with me until now because of the weight he felt from that environment that he had, and what they said was important. Diba? It's not do your best and learn, and I hope you have fun as you start school. No, it's you have to get great grades because all your cousins are going to watch. And
As parents and teachers, we have to be so careful about what we say and be very sensitive to our students. I think that's what I'm starting to get. Dr. Cara, there's a question from Carlo Durante about learning styles
yes,
to
what
contribute
did you?
to internal motivation. I guess we can also, ask, because you differentiated among mental models, mindsets, personal outlooks, personal principles. Where does learning styles fall into this?
Which framework? Maybe Carla, you wanna tell me when you're talking about learning styles, which framework you're getting from? Like for example, you mean learning style, like if you're verbal. I'm sorry. Yeah, diba? More auditory or more like you have verbal, like you have to read it, no? I'm trying to go through my mental file of learning styles and my mental files of motivation. Or if somebody is more like, if we're talking about learning styles from the perspective of the eight intelligences, diba?
Of Gardner, maybe that's the a common one.
I'm trying to remember, but again, if I go through my file, I don't know if learning styles uh, affects motivation. But I will say there is a variable in between that, and that would be the school's assessments. So let's say your learning style nga is artistic, like more aesthetic and creative and art based. So that is your learning style, and if the school can be creative, the teacher, the student level coordinator can do it such that the learning style is taken into consideration in terms of the assessment, then that can contribute to intrinsic motivation, right?
That's true.
So for example, if you're talking about Florante at Laura and want to understand, want to you want your students to really think about Florante's relationship with his father and so on. And then, of course, maybe you'll make one teacher will think, okay, everybody write an essay, right? But what if you make it an artwork, which shows really the experience of Florante being stuck to the tree or whatever, and then put that into art and to the colors that person brings. I acknowledge that might be harder for that teacher to assess if that's not their own learning style. But by doing that, I imagine the student will start thinking of this, that verse in the Florante at Laura book, and think about it more because it fits with their learning style. Or maybe a song, diba? If I'll make it into a song, and what is the feeling kaya of Florante in that moment when he was stuck to that, tied to the tree or whatever. It can create a more intrinsic motivational sense. They'll be more internally motivated because it fits with their learning style. So yeah, it will take creativity from us. But I'd like to believe from watching, seeing the assessments and expectations for kids now, even in very traditional schools, I see teachers becoming more creative there, and that is very, very fun and exciting.
I guess it's also related to what you're saying about the student
Yeah.
choice. And I think you said it is so that where are my notes? So that they can get value from what they are doing, right? So yeah, that was so helpful to me. I think we have time for two more questions, if it's okay, Dr. Cara. So there's a very interesting one from Noemi Formaran. Is there a particular instance that external motivation is more effective than internal motivation? I get maybe where she's coming from, because right, we still give grades, and there are times the easier way for the teachers to threaten or I don't know what do you think?
I think maybe the way I'll answer this is, can we, if there, maybe, can we have both? Parang can a grade,
Whenever
whenever you give a grade,
yeah,
what
okay.
is the constructive feedback related to that? And again, I see that in very creative assessments now, where students are actually asked, how well do you think you did in math this quarter? And where do you think you did better than others? I mean, that in other aspects. The thing, again, to me, a very easy example would be, this is the quarter where you learn problem solving. Kasi, di ba, when we do assessments, in intelligent assessment, meron yung basic algebra lang, adding, subtracting, tapos biglang okay naman yung score nila dito. But when they're able to do those IQ tests and achievement tests that are problem solving na, that there's an actual question and context, and then they have to do the math, dun sila nagkakamali, right? So break that down. So this quarter, we're learning how to do problem solving. Where do you think you're good at? What do you think you're good at? Baka they'll say, I'm good at the addition and subtraction, but knowing whether to use addition and subtraction, I'm not yet good at. So parang that internal sense of by giving more the behavioral side, the constructive side of what an A, B, C, or D means, is I think very helpful. And I think that's why what's also nice is, again, in this maybe last generation in teaching and education, the idea of rubrics, diba, and competencies came out. I feel more than before to really think, what are the dimensions of an assessment, diba? But I'm scared because now we just cut and paste it. Here's the rubric, do this when you write a paper, an essay, or something. I'm wondering though how technical it still sounds to our kids. Is it for us or for them? Diba? So going back, Noemi, is there, if you are going to make it external, grades do exist, but if there is a way to explain the behavior related to the grades, which will then help them discern what behaviors to change or what behaviors to maintain moving forward, can make all the difference. The
Now I'm thinking, when I teach about rubrics to prospect, teachers in my edo class, how do I do it so that I can link, the use of rubrics to growth mindset or internal motivation? Thank you for that.
The language of the kids.
That's true. And it has to be explained to them, right?
And written in a way that if they look at it themselves, after they write whatever make out their assessment, they look at it and they'll say, okay, done. I think I did it. But if it's so technically written, they just...
Dr. Cara,
yeah.
Now there are some schools who connect goal setting, whether like I want, whether it's about behavior, right? Like I want to not be scared of word problems, or great, or academic. Like I want to be able to work on my fractions and something like that. Do you advise that? And
without being so agitated? Yes, because that goal setting then makes it more internalized. Diba? Okay. Parang we said that in one bullet point, in the short term and in the long term, right? So in the short term, it things like that. I want to not be afraid of the moment I see a fraction. I want to not be afraid. So I think by explicitating that, they can then be more aware of it, rather than the emotion of that. just seeing that fraction, it already overcame them, that it then brings them to an emotional state such that the learning, the energy for learning, wala na. Kasi they're all anxious na. Makita lang nila yung may ganun, no, numerator and denominator, hindi na sila makagalaw because emotions have taken over and therefore thinking has lost its steam and lost its energy. If we make them simply aware of that, then the moment they see a fraction the next time, by remembering their goal, it's the first step. They go, okay, I notice I'm becoming anxious. I notice my heart is beating faster. I know I'm my thought bubble is yuck, fractions. I hate it.
Yeah.
Simply noticing that is already the first step towards change.
Sorry, ang daming nadagdag na question, Dr. Cara, because they're just all coming in. And anyway, last na talaga from Kent. It's about the pandemic. And do you have any special words about motivating students because of the pandemic?
Increasing motivation of students. I think I will start, and I say this a lot with my students online, to find their pace. We go back to the heart of what we're trying to share today, and to think about more to do. That which is growth mindset. We are where we are emotionally and cognitively, and inviting students to find that pace that is psychologically healthy for them. And that would mean having students think about what's happening to them emotionally and how it is affecting them cognitively, and also teaching them really the idea of a growth mindset, maybe now more than ever, to look it up, Google it, how to teach your kids a growth mindset, and even look for those articles that talked about how a 30-minute lecture on a growth mindset changed one group and their outcomes versus another group, the control group, which was not exposed to that 30-minute lecture of the growth mindset.
And the brain, you were saying the brain thing. Yeah.
I think now there's some studies that didn't focus on the brain, but just the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So there are all kinds, but just teaching about the growth mindset now more than ever is probably more important, because emotionally we are in this place of uncertainty. And of course, depending on the developmental level of your kids, with the older kids who are more aware of the macro and the micro of what is happening because of the pandemic and quarantine. And because of the developmental stage where older children, youth, adolescents, young adults are more developmentally in need of socialization, are more developmentally in need of opportunities to express their identity, like the student who was so into outreach now can't do outreach, diba?
Yes.
Student who loved being in a band or in a play cannot now be in a band or put on a play, right? So to know that, being sensitive to their developmental stage, their developmental needs, the teaching them about the growth mindset can be even more important now, because they have to find that pace to bring about incremental learning rather than always thinking of the A that should be gotten at the end of that assessment. That it's a work in progress, and here are all these factors now related to that growing, the emotional, the pace, the requirements, all of those are coming into play. And therefore, the goal will be simply more about how can I move rather than how can I be perfect.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Cara. If you're able to look at the Facebook feed later, there are just so many people who would like to thank you for a very informative and enlightening and timely talk. And there are lots of people who are saying they're going to reflect on it for themselves, of course, as well as for their teaching practice. So for me, what really stayed with me was the importance of the macro perspective of the student performance, so that you can celebrate incremental learning. That stayed with me a lot, as well as always validate and enjoy their point of view. That the enjoy their point of view is such a new insight for me, that it's so interesting. So thank you very much, Dr. Cara Fernandez. Let's all give her a virtual round of applause from wherever you are. And thank you to all our listeners and viewers today. We hope that the first webinar that we gave you already sets you on the road to thinking about the importance of learner agency, and in particular today, motivation and growth mindset. Where do all of these pieces, fall in, especially with regards to your teaching? So we'd like to just say that the recording of the video can be found on the Rex Bookstore, will be uploaded on the Rex Bookstore Facebook page and on the SALT Facebook page. I hope you will tune in to next week's webinar on relatedness, meeting students' relatedness needs. So thank you again, Dr. Fernandez. Thank you to everyone. We'll see you. Have a good weekend. Happy Valentine. That was also the thank you of Dr. Fernandez on her last slide. Happy Valentine to everyone. Thank you again.